The ultimate tournament of everything.
Welcome to the Tournament of Everything, a bracket-style show where we compare random pages off Wikipedia to other equally random pages off Wikipedia and figure out which of those things we like the best.
That's correct. And we do so by standing together in a bathroom in front of the mirror, turning off the lights, holding hands, and saying the name of each of these things 3 times before turning the light on. Which one of these will cause an evil demon from the underworld to come and attack us? That will be our victor. Moving on to the next round of
The ultimate tournament of everything.
You had me until I realized I was going to be killed by a girl coming out of a mirror. Now I don't want to do it.
But you were going to hold my hand?
Up until the demon part. It got kind of weird before that too, but that's just a deal breaker for me.
Fan-freaking-tastic. Well, let's kick this off and get into round 1.
Round one.
In round 1, we have the Anti-Poverty Committee against the Mark 29 Torpedo.
Oh boy, we've got some lovers versus some fighters. Let's see which approach is gonna come out on top tonight.
So as everyone knows, we pick entirely random pages off Wikipedia in this moment. So this is the first time I'm seeing it. This is the first time Mike's seeing it. And it's probably the first time you're hearing about it, unless you're one of the people who wrote this article. So our first competitor, the Anti-Poverty Committee, also known as APC, was a militant left-wing anarchist organization based in Vancouver that campaigned against poverty and homelessness.
You know, these are the types of people who might say that you can't make an omelet without breaking some eggs. And I might have jumped the gun a little bit on that. Peaceful protests are part of what they did. The APC participated in direct actions such as sit-ins, squats, but it also went to vandalism to protest the closure of low-income housing projects. I'm not seeing that they were terribly violent unless I haven't gotten to that article, though they did refer to them as militant.
They did start a small-scale riot during the opening of the 2010 Winter Olympics. And when I hear small-scale riot, I really don't think if I were involved in a riot, I would call it small. Nevertheless, unfortunately, the group no longer exists because, oddly enough, while they campaigned against poverty and homelessness, they failed to pay their rent and then no longer had office space.
Well, maybe there's going to be another committee to see to this committee. It is tough to break up a riot, though. You never want to resort to that. They do have some things. I think one thing that might be a little bit overkill to break up a riot is the Mark 29 Torpedo, our other competitor. This is a submarine-launched acoustic torpedo, as opposed to the electric torpedo, which was designed by Westinghouse Electric in 1945.
Now, the acoustic torpedo basically finds its way by listening for sounds and kind of homes in on the sounds of a ship. That's kind of an interesting way. I guess I didn't think torpedoes did that. I've never thought of how a torpedo finds its target, but that makes some sense now.
Well, Rob, have you ever been out in the city in the night and decided that you needed to find somewhere to be? You felt the action was nearby, and so you stood on the corner and silenced all of your senses, only to let a small wisp of sound into your ear, guiding you to a local watering hole and a concert that would change your very life? This is pretty much the same thing, except for much less pleasant.
Yeah, a torpedo finding you would change your life, but not in a good way.
Indeed. Who was all about changing lives? Was the Anti-Poverty Committee. So the group stated that their action was an eviction of the 2010 Winter Olympic Games special advisor from his office. Uh, I see, they were arrested. They were pretending to be delivering flowers, but they gained entry in there, started destroying glassware, overturning furniture and things. I mean, come on, it's not that bad.
I,
These people weren't. These people, there were bombings at previous Olympics. All these people did. I see they flipped over some furniture. Jesus did that, for goodness sake.
Richard Jewell did nothing wrong. Um, by, by the way, hi, Paul. I hope you're doing well. We went to college together. Great job in that movie.
Oh yeah, you rock.
So I don't think you can call it an eviction when you pretend to deliver flowers, go into an office, and destroy it. You're not evicting anybody. You're ruining their office. I can't just show up in your living room, flip over your couch, and be like, you're evicted. It does not work that way.
Yeah, but with all of their might and power, they could only flip over a few tables and chairs. I'm pretty sure that had Mark the 29th Torpedo shown up, it would have caused a heck of a lot more damage. I don't think that I want to spend any more time around this torpedo, and so I think I'm going to leave it in the silent waters of the ocean and move forward the Anti-Poverty Committee, the militant left-wing anarchist organization, into the next round.
Well, I like your chutzpah. I think you're totally wrong. And I think Mark the 29th Torpedo, which is a great name for it that we're sticking with, I think if I had to pit these two against each other in a fight, one of them wins, and it's not that group that struggled with the couch. It's this acoustic torpedo, which means we have a tie. And I think the only way to solve it is you will come in and flip some furniture, and I will throw Mark the 29th Torpedo at you. And whoever's having a better day after that is the winner.
No, I don't even think that's necessary. Plus, I've just redecorated. When you put it the way you did, if they were to fight one another, I guess I gotta side with you. Let's hold off on the conflict between ourselves, giving, this is enough conflict for me. And so I cede to you and Mark the 29th Torpedo. You are moving on to the next round of
The ultimate tournament of everything.
One more time.
The ultimate tournament of everything.
That torpedo is
wow.
just that good.
Two-time torpedo. Speaking of two, let's move on to round two.
It's time for round two.
In round two, we have Sombat the First of Iberia against Premier Airways, a low-fare passenger project from India.
Ooh. We've got Sombat, which is some guy, and we also have some airway that apparently is premier yet low fare. Let's see which one of these is going to have a sum which will add up to victory.
Sombat the First of Iberia was a Georgian prince of the Bargationi dynasty of Ta Klarjeti, hereditary ruler of Lower Tau and the titular king of Iberia from 1937 until his death, when he was still the king but now dead.
Yeah, I believe that that's a title that does cease upon the moment of, passage. However, let's go back to the beginning. See, Sumbat was the youngest son of Ardenace IV. He was a younger brother of David II, upon whose death he succeeded as king of the Iberians in 937.
Now, he's commemorated in the church in inscriptions from Ishkani and Doliskana in what is now the Artvin province in Turkey. What a guy.
So, yeah, a guy, let's see, 1937 and 1958, that's only 21 years. So he did all of this in 21 trips around the sun. But you know what? If you're going to try and make a trip, not around the sun, but around the earth, what's the best way to do that, Robert?
Elevator.
No. See, that goes straight up and down. And hopefully someday it'll go to the moon. But right now, our best bet would be an airplane. And if you're going to fly, you'd like it to be both premier and cheap. And Premier Airways seems to have been just that.
It had proposed to launch low-cost regional scheduled services for which it had received a no-objection certificate from the Ministry of Civil Aviation. Now, that has since expired before the airline could start operations. That's unfortunate.
So they were pretty much just like, hey, that sounds like a good idea. And everyone else agreed. But then they just never really did anything with it. And now they're going to have to get them all to agree again. The Public Limited Company, which seems to be the perhaps over the umbrella owner of this, was founded in August 2005 by a group of non-resident Indian entrepreneurs.
They wanted to be basically the Southwest Airlines of India, and they planned to purchase 40 Airbus A320neo aircraft worth about $4.3 billion. But this article is either out of date or they did nothing since then because they are not around, and this article ends in 2015.
Okay, so basically what we have here is something that pretty much everybody has agreed was a good idea, but that, like many good ideas, never fully materialized. But if you want to talk about full materialization, what is a better manifestation of that than a human being themselves, including but not limited to Sumbat the First of Iberia?
He is more than just somebody I used to know, and I think he's my pick for this round.
Holy cow. And just for that joke alone, and on his own merits as well, 2 times, I'm going to move on in agreement with Rob, Sumbat the First of Iberia, to the next round of
The ultimate tournament of everything.
I was thinking of that terrible joke for minutes. Can't you tell?
It's the second that you hit that random button and you saw some bot, you just heard nothing but, what is it, Gautier?
Yeah, Gautier the whole time.
Cheap TA.
Living rent-free in my brain, just like...
3. It's time for round 3.
In round 3, we have Abe Starr against Parque Pereso.
We have 2 very short articles. Abe Starr, that sounds fascinating. Parque Pereso. Por qué are you here? We're going to learn the answers to all of these questions right now.
Abe Starr, not a person, actually a Japanese motorcycle, built between 1951 and 1958, and the top model was a 148cc 4-stroke engine with the company's own overhead valve engine. And that is the entire article.
Now, for those who may not know, a 4-stroke engine is an internal combustion engine in which the piston completes 4 separate strokes while turning the crankshaft. And a stroke refers to the full travel of the piston along the cylinder in either direction.
It's a great explanation for those who don't know. Cars are 4-stroke engines, lawnmowers, chainsaws, 2-stroke engines.
And a motorcycle is a 2- or 3-wheeled motor vehicle.
Oh, there we go. That's nice. Yeah, I've seen some of those really interesting 3-wheeled motorcycles. They kind of scare me.
I'm glad that those are considered a motorcycle because whenever I see one, I'm not really sure what to call them other than cool as heck. Speaking of cool as heck, let's talk about the biggest neighborhood council in the Brazilian municipality of Itapecerica da Serra, Parque Paraíso.
Can you tell between the two of us we have 4 combined years of Spanish? Can you? Can you? You can't? Imagine that. This neighborhood almost forms a conurbation with the city center and has a large proportion of the population of the municipality of Itapecerica. It is tough. Total population around 25,000 people. Doesn't list homes as we're used to.
Let's see, has a large network of trade and the largest and most comprehensive public transport network. It gets people where they need to be, and it's where those people need to be to do the things that they need those people to do.
Now, if I had to pick which one of these things I'd want to move on, it could be the people or it could be the thing that moves the people. And I think I got to go with the thing that moves the people.
Yep. Looking at this large neighborhood council, was it? If it was just the neighborhood itself, I think this would have been a little bit closer. But I am not a big fan of councils. But I do love a good municipality. However, I also love a star of the motorcycle world, which is the, I'm guessing, Abe Star. And you're moving on to the next round of.
The ultimate tournament of everything.
Abe makes way more sense than Abe now that I took a second to rub my two brain cells together. So, yes, probably Abe Star.
Well, I'll bet that this next round is going to have another tongue twister just waiting for us. So let's dig right in to round 4.
My round 4 is ready.
In round 4, we have Cedar Park, Texas against Seavend Dam.
Well, we haven't had a town from Texas in quite some time, but we haven't had a dam at all yet. However, it is in Iran, so that holds in, with our pattern. Let's see which one of these is going to come out on top tonight.
Now, if memory serves correctly, our last town from Texas was Quail Creek, Texas, and this is Cedar Park, Texas, a city and major suburb of Austin, about 16 miles to the northwest of the center of Austin, with a population, as of 2020, of 77,595 people.
Big place. Now, let's take it back, down memory lane. Before the arrival of European settlers in the 19th century, the Cedar Park area was inhabited by Native American tribes, including the Tonkawa, the Lipan Apache, and the Comanche.
For years, the city was actually known as Running Brushy, which is an interesting name for a place. And as with many things in Texas, the railroad is actually what led to some of its growth.
That's right. Once the railroad came through, it really sparked off the growth of this town. But it did change very little until the 1950s and 60s when housing subdivisions began to be built, spurred by nearby Austin. So as goes the city, so go the suburbs. Major retailers began finding their ways into the cities. Walmart came in, and now everything that you can imagine is definitely there, including that Texas heat.
There is a minor league hockey stadium as well as a G League NBA team that play at the H-E-B Center at Cedar Park. And H-E-B is actually one of the prominent grocery stores in Texas. And the H-E-B Center was completed in 2009 and hosts a wide array of live entertainment and sport activities.
That's right. And, if you've ever been there, you'd know that when people are waiting to get into the show, you can barely hold them back. It's like waves crashing upon the gates, and then they finally let them in and they flood into the stadium. And it's a time where the security guards must think, boy, it'd be handy if we had some sort of dam. Speaking of dams, let's jump over to our other competitor, the Seavand Dam, built in 2007 in the Fars province of Iran, named after the nearby town of Seavand, located northwest of Shiraz.
The Iranian government planned this dam for over 10 years with a location on the Pulvar River in the Tanga Balagi, in between the ruins of Persepolis and Peresigaradi. It was intended to allow irrigation in the arid region, and planning and initial construction began in 1992. and it looks like maybe finally completed in 2003, maybe.
It seems as though this was something that they had, as you said, planned for a long time now. For the first decade, much of this planning was not made public. In fact, Iran's own Iranian Cultural Heritage Organization was not aware of the total area that would be flooded until 2003. And then when the intentions for the dam were made public, international concern was raised. Rumors spread that it would place 2 ruins underwater, spurring outcry and petitions. A lot of historical sites there in Iran. But the Iranian Ministry of Energy and Studies have placed the furthest reaches of the lake. Ultimately, that occurred approximately 7 kilometers to the south of the plain of Merkab.
That's interesting to me. So they're basically saying, hey, we need water to live, but this used to be an old road. Let's not put it underwater?
Well, I mean, you can't have everything. You can't have the present and the past. You can't have I don't know, the future and the past. But here we are in the present with this gift that is the ultimate tournament of everything. It seems as though, you don't make a dam for no reason. That being said, besides the certain flooding of 130 archaeological sites, larger concern has been levied at the dam's effect on nearby World Heritage sites. In 2010, it showed the groundwaters in the area had risen, though, once they put it in as a result of the dam and the lake. And speaking of rising to the top, let's talk about this little town in Texas, Cedar Park.
Now, normally I have a vendetta against Texas just because Texas loves itself so much that I feel like no one else should really like Texas. And if you actually go to one of these HEBs, they sell bags of tortilla chips shaped like the state of Texas. That's right. Shaped exactly like the state of Texas, a state you love so much you could eat it with salsa. So normally I'd be against Texas, but this place sounds fun, and I think I want to learn more about it, and I'd want to move it on.
Looking at it, it definitely looks as though look, it's got a little American Hockey League team. It's got a NBA G League team. It's got all these things, schools, but it is still in Texas. Looks like the median income for a household in the city was $87,000. I'm not sure where that lies in comparison to other places, but I think that the value of the C-band dam has got to far exceed that of this Cedar Park in Texas. And so I think now, Rob, we find ourselves at that impasse.
Time for a tiebreaker.
As everyone knows, the only way we can break a tie is to actually travel to Stephen Dam and figure out who can hold their breath the longest. Mike, did you bring your passport?
I'm not going to do very well, man. Can we just pick a number between like 1 and 10,000?
Yeah, that sounds fair. I don't think you're gonna be able to hold your breath. You tried for my intro and you couldn't make it. What's your number?
No. I'm a little lightheaded, so I think I'm gonna pick the number 800.
Okay. Cedar Park, Texas was established in 1887, so that's going to be my number, 1887. So I'm going to go out to the Google machine, and I'm going to pick a random number between 1 and 10,000, and it is 4,399, which means Cedar Park, Texas. You are moving on.
Congratulations, Cedar Park. You can pull yourselves out of park and drive right on to the next round.
Now that next round, everyone knows what next round it is. It's everyone's favorite number, especially if you're a kid who just learned to count.
Round 5. Round 5.
In round 5, we have Virginia Thompson Holleran against the Shanghai Premier League.
Okay, yes. An American statistician for some people who cared a lot about stats, amateur football players. And this is soccer, based out of Shanghai. Let's see which one of these is going to be able to crunch the numbers and come up with a total victory.
Virginia Thompson Holleran was an American statistician who became Director of Statistics and Research for the Institute of Life Insurance in 1944.
Yes, of course, there she was also the editor for the annual Life Insurance Fact Book.
What would the fact book even contain?
You need this while you're alive, until other people need it when you're not.
That makes about sense. She retired in the 60s and 70s and then later served on the Board of Education for Bridgeport, Connecticut. That's nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's see. Elected at some point as a fellow of the American Statistical Association. And there's a slim chance anybody gets on that. She was elected for services to the American Statistical Association, especially for the development of corporate memberships. So, she got companies involved, probably really helped grow the corporation, got a lot of wins. Speaking of wins, let's jump right on over to the Shanghai Premier League.
It is also known as the SPL, and it is an amateur football league based in Pudong, Shanghai, aiming mainly at the expatriate community. The Shanghai Premier League was founded in 2003 when 5 already existing amateur teams, along with the Shanghai Traffic Police team, who had played only on occasion, decided to group themselves and play in a league.
Yeah, this sounds like a lot of fun. Playing soccer, getting out there. They do have some special events, including the Shanghai Premier League Santa Cup. It's a one-day, 11-a-side tournament occasionally held during the winter break, as well as the Shanghai Premier League World Cup, an event which is usually held at the start of the summer to coincide with the FIFA World Cup, and has even, Rob, been covered by the local media.
The Ocho covered it? That's the local media, right?
I think at this point we'd be at like a higher number and definitely pronounced in a Chinese derivative language. Now, let's look at some of the teams. What surprises me here is some of the names. Now, you'll see that they've got the Stoke City men's team, Shanghai. You've got Super 48, Shanghai 2000, which I think is swell. But there are others that might surprise you. Rob, would you like to highlight a couple of those for us?
Yeah, you have the Bulls of Bosporus by the Turkish and German players. You have the Cowboys by the Chinese. You have the Étoile Rouge de Shanghai by none other than the French. So because these are teams made out of expats, there's a lot of nationalities. It looks like they're playing together, forming teams based on where they're originally from.
That is fascinating. Now, I'm a big fan of the team from Belgium and Spain called the Flamencos, and I think they would be my just preseason pick. Let's scroll down here a little bit and see how the teams have done. Looks like in the first year, the Lions won. They don't. Oh, yes, the Shanghai Lions. They're still in there. They're consisted of players from France, US, and the Netherlands. And most recently, in 2011 and 12, the Hawks, who also I don't see on this list of teams existing anymore. They won, but looks like they had a victory and had enough.
And that's really some of the fun things about some of these very small leagues is they're fleeting. People play for the love of the game, and then when they're too old to play for the love of the game, they quit playing, and the league kind of just dissolves.
Yes, players get older, but the game stays the same age. Speaking of staying the same age, let's talk about that individual who is no longer aging and helped us through the hardest times of our life. Virginia Thompson Holran, the statistician. Do you think she had any odds, advice that might have helped bettors, perhaps, in the Shanghai Premier League?
Well, being that she works with insurance, she'd probably say, don't play soccer. That would probably be her advice. Don't do that.
Either don't play soccer to stay on the safe side or burn down the stadium to go the opposite way. Neither of those are really good suggestions, though. And so I think we might want to stay away from this Virginia Thompson Holran. And I think that's why I'm choosing the Shanghai Premier League as my choice to move on to the next round of
The ultimate tournament of everything.
Well, and I would have to agree. And I could hear you playing the theme song of the Shanghai Traffic Police team in the background while you were talking earlier. That siren is just music to my ears, and I remember that siren every time they scored a goal. So the Shanghai Premier League, you're my pick as well. Let's jump right in to round 6.
Making a turn around the last curve. He comes around the last side, and there you have it. There is your winner, round 6.
In round 6, we have Catherine Tickle against a common word between us and you.
We have two things that just may bring a smile to your face. A tickle and a common word between us. Let's see which one of these will please us into the next round of the ultimate tournament of everything.
Catherine Tickle is an English musician noted for playing the Northumbrian small pipes and the fiddle. And it sounds like the Northumbrian small pipes are a type of bagpipe. Cool.
Awesome. Very, very cool. Born in Walsall, then in Staffordshire. Wow. That's an interesting way to start it. She was born in 2 places, according to this article, to her parents who originated in Northumberland and who moved back there with their family when Catherine was 7.
How do you think that works? You think like her legs came out and they're like, no, we can't live here. This is a terrible place to be born. Get in the car, honey.
Yeah, well, no, they didn't want to pay for another plane ticket, so they were just like, well, just don't say nothing. Let's move on. At 13, she gained a reputation for performing in festivals and winning pipe contests.
Now, when she was 17, she released her first album on Kilderside, which she recorded at her parents' house. And during that same year, she was named the official piper to the Lord Mayor of Newcastle, an office that had been vacant for 13 years.
Yeah, this person is not messing around, okay? Part of their early career was chronicled in The Long Tradition, a TV documentary. There was another documentary made about her called Catherine Tickle's Northumbria, which appeared in 2006. She founded the Young Musicians Fund and the Tyne and Ware Foundation to provide money to young people in northeastern England who wanted to learn music. You look down at her list of awards and honors. It's pretty lengthy. And you look down at her discography. That's also lengthy. But what stands out to me is she's got a whole category of recordings just labeled with Sting.
Well, that's fun. Just a bunch of things with Sting, probably for the Tarzan movie.
No, throughout many years, starting in 1991. Latest one was in 2013, The Last Ship. Look, Sting is great. Sting, I got stung by Sting long ago, and if he thinks she's good, I'm sure she is. Catherine Tickle, you're tickling my heartstrings. But let's jump over, with the thought of joining together. And why don't we share a common word between us and you?
Now, as everyone knows, this is an open letter from October 13th, 2007, from Muslim to Christian leaders, and it calls for peace between Muslims and Christians and tries to work for common ground and understanding between both religions, in line with a command from the Quran saying, "O people of the scripture, come to a common word as between us and you."
Now, this was, according to the letter's website, written by Prince Ghazi bin Muhammad bin Talal of the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan. It's signed by 138 prominent Muslim personalities from a large number of countries and several continents, including academics, politicians, writers, and muftis.
I have no idea what a mufti is. Now, there was a lot of support for the letter, but there was also some criticism, such as from Robert Spencer, an American conservative commentator, who basically said, "We can't agree on anything until we talk about what makes us different."
Well, that's true. We're all individuals, but we're also in this together. What better example could there be of that than this, the ultimate tournament of everything, where we find these two competitors facing off? Now, I do see contents here. We've got all the signatories listed. But it looks like the content started with the list of addresses, summary, and abridgment, and then it proceeded into categories such as love of God in Islam, love of God as first and greatest commandment in the Bible, love of the neighbor in Islam, and then in the Bible, and then coming together to a common word, come to a common word between us and you. So it makes its points from both sides, brings it together, does so with a few more, and then sums up by saying, "Why can't we be friends?"
That's copywritten. Don't sing anymore.
That's why I did it different. It was distinctly different.
There we go. Now, looking at these two competitors, I don't think I can move a common word between us and you on past Catherine Tickle, because they admit themselves that this document is a first step, but one that strives to lay a solid foundation. The document cannot be expected to do everything at once. But you know who can do everything at once? Anyone playing music with Sting.
Yeah, you gotta be up there singing, dancing, entertaining everybody, and tapping into that deep soul, which is music and art. And what's that if not also the spirit of this competition, as I've said many, many times before, and will never stop saying. So yes, I agree with you, Catherine Tickle. You're awesome. And moving on to the next round of
The ultimate tournament of everything.
Let's waste no time getting into everybody's favorite round.
Round seven.
Round seven.
Round seven.
Round 7.
In round 7, we have Stoffer against Allison Stewart.
Oh, another instance where we have a name versus a person with a name. Let's see who's going to come out on top in this very unique and specific battle.
Stoffer is a surname, and notable people with this name include Chris Stoffer, a Dutch politician, Ferry Stoffer, a Dutch Grand Prix motorcycle racer, Joel Stoffer, an American actor, Julie Stoffer, an American television host, Peter Stoffer, a Canadian politician, and Thijs Stoffer, Netherlands chairman of the Kandersteg International Scout Center Committee.
Now, Rob, I'd just like to take this moment. When you think of Stoffer, or perhaps even Stoffers, what do you think of?
I generally think of the frozen food section.
Why?
Stoffer's pot pies.
So you don't think of Stoffer's stovetop stuffing?
They have stuffing? I love that stuffing.
No, apparently they don't. I thought they did. A lot of people think they did. That's a Mandela effect thing. Apparently it never existed. But also, apparently, none of these people seem to have been the individual who invented that. And so let's get off of that very confusing point and back to this differently spelled Stoffer. Let's see. Dutch politician, Dutch racer. Then we got American actor, American television host, and then we have a Canadian politician, and then a Netherlands. Looks like politician. So these people, it's half of them are politicians, one racer, two actors. These are some convincing individuals.
Yeah, but not as convincing as our friend Allison Stewart, an American journalist and author who gained widespread visibility during everyone's favorite TV channel in the 90s, working for MTV.
Back when MTV was MTV, she was born in Glen Ridge, New Jersey, attended Brown University, got her bachelor's in arts and bachelor's of arts rather in English and American literature, began her broadcasting career after that. In 1988, she began as an assistant there at MTV, and then looks like she remained at MTV for much of the 1990s.
Yeah, it looks like she didn't just stick with MTV, she moved into real news. She's worked with Anderson Cooper, she wrote a book. In 2018, she was added to the WNYC lineup, hosting a midday show called All of It with Allison Stewart.
And you've reached the peak of news when you get to serve as a panelist on NPR's Wait, Don't Tell Me. But she's also filled in as host of NPR's Talk of the Nation and Weekend Edition.
I think anytime you have a news program that is news with and then your name, that's really how you know you've made it, right? That's how you know, when it's the news with you.
Well, I'm pretty sure the best way to know that you've made it is to find yourself here in the ultimate tournament of everything. And when we're here, we're going to be proudly pronouncing your name. And if your name happens to be Stoffer, we might be talking about you in this round. Looks like most of these individuals, I'm sure there's a lot more people with the name Stoffer, not just these successful individuals. Let me just say, like listed individuals. I'm sure there have been many successful Stoffers, and I'm sure at least some of them think that some brand of stuffing was made with their name on it. And I'm saying, Rob, I really thought that this existed.
But you know what actually exists? Allison Stewart actually exists. And because I know she actually exists and she's going to give me the news straight, she's my pick for this round.
I completely agree. MTV, CBS, NPR, you can throw any letters you want in there. She's our champion. And moving on to the next round of
The ultimate tournament of everything.
I wonder if she actually liked Carson Daly.
Carson Daly was okay. It was when Carson Knightley came around that things just, it wasn't as fun.
Yeah, that's true. I'll give you that one. It's way more fun.
Oh, it's so fun. Let's get it.
I say, would you by chance have any round 8?
Round 8!
I always love when we have the same poorly worded transition lined up in our brains. That's fantastic.
Indeed. There's not a lot of space in there, but when it does line up, we'll get a singularity. And I am singularly excited to learn who will be facing off in this round. So, Rob, please disclose our competitors.
John Douglas, a Connecticut politician, against Paul Mattei. We actually have a person versus a person today.
One of the most balanced battles you may find here. However, at a glance, I'm seeing that our heavyweight competitor is going to be Mr. Mattei, the French Latinist. So he taught Latin language and literature at the Lumiere University. He was a specialist of the history of Christianity and its first period, and scientific advisor to the Institut des Sources Christianais.
Almost correct, but I don't know how it would be any better. So we'll take that. So apparently he speaks in Latin, translates Latin. Tertullian is in here, which I don't know what that is. Tertullian, prolific early Christian author from Carthage, who I guess wrote in Latin. So there we go. He's translated a lot from Tertullian. Tertullian, that guy.
Yeah, they say Latin is a dead language, but it seems as though this guy made his life around it. And he wrote books about it. He translated books about it. I'm sure that he just slept, and dreamed about it. Actually, that's interesting. I wonder if he had dreams in Latin or if it was in, let's see, where was he? Where was he from? He was French. I wonder if he dreamed in French or Latin. What do you think?
I don't think anyone can truly dream in French. It's more of a smelly nightmare.
You can aspire in French. Well, speaking of aspirations, let's talk about our friend, perhaps, John Douglas, the Connecticut politician.
He was a member of the General Court of the Colony of Connecticut from Norwalk in October 1669, and that is effectively all we know about him. He was in office until May of 1670. The end.
Wow. Okay, but this does stand out a little bit. How long has Connecticut been a thing?
At least a year or two.
I would say so. I think I remember it back around 2005 at least. But this is saying that he was a member of the General Court of the Colony of Connecticut back in 1669. I know that Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1492. It's so interesting. So much happened, and it really hasn't been that long. And this guy took part in it.
He did. But apparently not a big part. Yeah, not a big part. There's nothing else written about him. This is probably somebody who was looking through a book and they found his name with some dates next to it and they're like, well, that needs to be a Wikipedia article. But it's not nearly as good as the article about Paul Mattei.
Yeah, I really think that perhaps had someone written about John Douglas in that dead language that is Latin, our French friend Paul Mattei may have picked it up and put it within the scope of our interest. But I don't really know if we still would have been that interested. We don't know that we can't translate the titles of any of these books. They're all in French, but I'm sure they're great. And so is Paul Mattei. And so I think I'm going to move him as my choice to the next round of
The ultimate tournament of everything.
I absolutely have to agree with you because while I'm sure John Douglas was doing fine in 1669, he's not as good as that man who translates all that Latin.
That's such a great rhyme. So Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1492, and
John Douglas was doing fine in 1669.
I love it. We learn something new every day. Paul Mattei, I think that's what we're going for. You've won the day. And moving on to the next round of
The ultimate tournament of everything.
Paul, we loved you so much, we did it twice.
Two-time.
It's about time for round 9.
Round 9.
In round 9, we have the Frontier Trail against Resvandun.
Yes. We have Resvandun, a place that may be found, versus the Frontier Trail, a lost 1926 American silent Western film. Let's see which one of these is going to be located in the next round.
So you would never imagine that in a lost silent film, you would have quite possibly one of the most memorable voices in America never be heard, and that is the voice of Harry Carey, who apparently plays Jim Cardigan in this movie, and no one gets to hear him.
I'm Jim Cardigan, and I like the Cubs. That was a really bad impression, but I tried for you, Rob. Hey, hot dogs.
That was like somebody doing an impression of what another guy doing an impression of what South Park did an impression of Harry Carey would sound like.
But now it's here and it exists, and you can feel free to send us your very own Harry Carey impressions through Anchor FM. Send us blasts, send us comments, send us reviews, send us suggestions, but just don't send us anything weird or gross, because if you do, we can't air it, but we can definitely listen to it. So that being said, let's get back to the lost movie that is The Frontier Trail.
Now, there are some actors that I've never heard of in this, but there's a name I want to point out in particular. There's Chief John Big Tree, who played Chief Gray Wolf in the movie. So that's kind of fun.
Chief John Big Tree, member of the Seneca Nation, and an actor who appeared in 59 films between 1915 and 1950. Born in Buffalo, New York, and he died on the Onondaga Indian Reservation, also in New York.
Apparently, he's also cursed because he makes you sneeze. Now, this film, for language, it actually lists silent, which is interesting. I would kind of list language as NA for a silent film, but I'm not the one writing the Wikipedia article. That's fine. But I can tell you that Resvandan is definitely not in English. That is in Iranian. Farsi, probably? I guess I don't know what language they speak in Iran. But we have another small village in Iran. This is like our 15th small village in Iran in the show.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like they've got a lot of places to live, a lot of choices, but not a lot seems to be known about any of those locations. But we do see our very favorite statistic. I know you're waiting for it, everybody. Rob, how many families live in this area?
19.
Oh, man, that might be the lowest number of families that we've had yet. There are only 93 people that live here. What's the square mileage of this place? That's crazy.
Whoever has organized the Farm League in Iran for getting into the Ultimate Tournament of Everything is doing a fantastic job, because they show up way more than you would think they should for small villages with only 93 people in them.
But you got to play to win, and you can't say that they're not showing up every day, bringing every chance that they can possibly have and throwing it in the ring. And sometimes you're going to come out with a win. But looking at this, I'm not totally certain that this is going to be one of those times. What I like here is that this is a lost movie. Apparently it's known to exist, but you can't see it. Lost is a feature or short that no longer exists in studio archives, private collections, public collections, or the U.S. Library of Congress. This is kind of like do you remember in Titanic that jewel that was, lost and everyone was looking for it, but the lady had it the whole time till she threw it off the boat in the end? Somebody is throwing this film off of a boat at the end of a movie.
I hate that old lady. It's like the dumbest plot in a movie.
Oops. I think it's great. Come on. Who needs she didn't need it.
Okay, I can't say it's the dumbest plot in a movie, because I can't watch The Frontier Trail. Maybe that has a dumber plot. It's so interesting to me that we have something that people did see that no one will ever see again, that we also know existed. And I think for that,
there's a reason.
There might be a reason. And the reason might be that it's so awesome the world cannot contain it any longer. But now the question is, which one do I want to talk about more, and which one do I want to see represented in our tournament?
Well, Rob, when you're talking about who you want to see come back, and if you're not sure, sometimes it's good to take the reverse look at it and see who you want to front. And I think here we're looking at the Frontier Trail. I would love the opportunity to be the one to discover this lost film, be the first person to watch it in years and years and decide, it's not that good. But today it was just good enough to move on, in my opinion, to the next round of
the Ultimate Tournament of Everything.
I agree with you. And if you're listening and you happen to have a copy of the Frontier Trail, I would love you to send it to us, put it up on YouTube, do something. I would love to see this movie. And if you can make that happen, that would be one of the coolest things to ever happen on the internet.
I'm Harry Carey. Don't let my movie go away. Get a hot dog. Hey.
I'm so glad we made sure he recorded that before his passing several decades ago. That's totally worth it for the show.
Mr. Carey, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. I think the second time was a little better than the first. I promise not to try again, but you can hold me accountable to that by tuning in every single day to find a scouting report, our one-on-one deep dives into very specific competitors in this, the Ultimate Tournament of Everything, which you can find full episodes of on Tuesday and Thursday, going through 18 randomly generated competitors as we have just done tonight. So, Rob, why don't you hit us with one more nugget of infinity?
We really enjoy making these guys, and because they are entirely random, maybe we'll get something you actually like listening to. Maybe today wasn't that day. Maybe tomorrow will be that day. There's only one way to find out, and that way is to tune in to
The Ultimate Tournament of Everything.